Imagine a man who could rip a lion apart with his bare hands, defeat an entire army with nothing but a bone he picked up off the ground, and carry massive city gates on his shoulders like they were a light backpack. This is the story of Samson. He had all the power in the world, but struggled to keep his own life from falling apart. His life proves that being gifted is not the same as being mature. And his journey feels more like a modern gritty reboot than a dusty old scroll. His story began with a miracle. His parents were a regular couple who could not have children until an angel appeared out of nowhere with a specific message. They were going to have a son who would change everything for their nation, which was currently being oppressed by their enemies, the Philistines. But there was a catch. This kid had to live by a strict set of rules known as the Nazirite vow. He could not touch alcohol, he could not touch anything dead, and most famously, he could never, ever cut his hair. This long hair was not just a style choice. It was a physical symbol of his connection to God, the true source of his superhuman strength. As Samson grew up, he did not exactly act like the holy man his parents probably expected. He was impulsive, rude, and driven by whatever looked good to him in the moment. He eventually wandered into Philistine territory and fell for a woman there. His parents tried to talk some sense into him, asking why he could not date someone from his own community. But Samson basically told them that she was right in his eyes. And that was that. On the way to visit her, a young lion jumped out of a vineyard and roared at him. Without a weapon in sight, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he tore that lion to pieces like it was a piece of paper. Later, he walked past the carcass of the lion and saw that a swarm of bees had made honey inside it. He broke his vow by touching the dead animal to get the honey, and he even used the experience to bet his wedding guests that they could not solve a riddle about it. When his new Philistine friends could not figure it out, they threatened to burn his bride and her family alive if she did not get the answer out of him. She cried and nagged him until he finally caved. When the guests gave him the answer, Samson went on a rampage of revenge that started a cycle of violence that would last for years. Samson became a one-man wrecking crew. In one famous incident, he was tied up with new ropes by his own people, who were too scared of the Philistines to fight back. But as soon as the enemy approached, he snapped those ropes like they were burnt thread and grabbed the fresh jawbone of a donkey. He used that single bone to take out 1,000 enemy soldiers all by himself. In another wild moment, after visiting a woman in the city of Gaza, the Philistines locked the city gates to trap him inside. Samson did not just pick the lock. He ripped the massive iron gates out of the ground, hinges and all, and carried them miles away to the top of a hill. But even a guy who can carry city gates has a weakness. And for Samson, it was a woman named Delilah. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek, and the Philistine leaders saw her as their best chance to finally take Samson down. They offered her a huge fortune in silver, 1,100 pieces from each leader, to find the secret of his strength. This was not just a simple betrayal. It was a psychological battle. 3 times she asked him his secret, and 3 times he lied to her. He told her he would become weak if he was tied with bowstrings, new ropes, or if his hair was woven into a weaver's loom. Every time he woke up, he broke free easily, but Delilah did not stop. She started playing the emotional card, nagging him day after day, and asking how he could say he loved her when he would not trust her with his heart. Finally, he was vexed to death by her persistence and he broke. He told her everything, that he was a Nazirite, and that if his hair were shaved, his strength would leave him, and he would be like any other man. While he was asleep on her lap, she called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his head. When he woke up, he thought he could just shake the Philistines off like before, but he did not realize that the Lord had left him. They captured him, gouged out his eyes, and threw him in a prison in Gaza to grind grain like a work animal. But while Samson was in the dark, something was happening. His hair began to grow back. One day, the Philistines threw a massive victory party in the temple of their god Dagon. They brought Samson out to make fun of him, standing in between the 2 central pillars that held up the whole roof. The temple was packed with 3,000 people, including all the big shot leaders. Samson asked a young boy who was leading him by the hand to let him feel the pillars so he could lean against them to rest. Standing there, blind and broken, Samson prayed one last time for strength. He grabbed the 2 little pillars, which archaeological finds in that region show were likely cedar posts resting on stone bases about 6 or 7 feet apart, and he pushed with everything he had. The entire temple came crashing down, killing Samson and more enemies in that single moment than he had in his entire life. The story of Samson is wild, messy, and definitely not your typical good guy story. It shows us a man who was gifted by the Spirit, but had 0 self-control. Someone who made peace with his enemies when he should have been leading his people. But it also shows a surprising truth about grace and second chances, even when you are standing in the ruins of your own mistakes. Samson was his own worst enemy, and his life is a reminder that you can have all the talent in the world, but if you do not have the character to back it up, you might end up pulling the whole house down on yourself. He judged Israel for 20 years, but his greatest victory only came when he finally realized where his true strength came from.